So welcome back, everybody. Just a quick update of what's happening in New York City. Trump is possibly going to quarantine the area. Now, we're already on sort of a semi-lockdown, which means only essential workers are supposed to be leaving their houses. When you are an essential worker, as both me and Jabari are, you are given a letter from your company that you're supposed to carry with you to show the police. I don't really know exactly what's going to happen when this quarantine would start. Right now, I drive my car in, nobody's stopping me, so I haven't been stopped and had to show my letter. But we were given a letter. I took a photo of the letter. We might get IDs, but we are on the verge of a possible quarantine. Now, that could get crazy, because what does that entail? Does that entail martial law? Does that entail stricter, enforcement? We don't know. My next report will be in New York City, so we'll be able to see again what the climate is right now in New York City. But being an essential worker, I was going to ask you, Jabari, what if you can give us a vague description of what you do without obviously telling exactly where you work or what you do, but how this is affecting you as you told me, a healthcare worker.
The healthcare, all the people that work in the healthcare center, they're all wearing masks right now. And right now, I haven't heard of anybody having COVID or anything, but, they're very, being in tight spaces like they are, it's a problem. Out here in the community where I work at, they've cut down all activities, and we're practicing social distancing to the point where they closed the pool, they closed the fitness room, the dining room is closed. They're delivering all the food to the people. So we're on what they call, basically like if a hurricane was coming in, a shelter-in-place order.
Yeah, and I think everybody likes to personalize this so people can understand how everybody's being impacted, right? So my mom is actually in Atria Wildwood in Fort Lauderdale. It was considered at one point the epicenter of the breakout in Florida. At one point, there was 19 people having COVID-19. I believe at this point 3 have died. And as I told you off air, my niece is on the front line. We only speak as much as I say, hey, I love you, and she says, I love you back, and hope you're okay. I don't know what the possible problems with PPE would be, which is personal protection equipment. I don't know how that's affecting you. I do have another friend who used to do a Talk Bernie to Me podcast, who I don't want to out her, but she's working in the intermediary ICU, and she does complain again that there are issues again with the PPE. Before we came on broadcast, our producer told us about the Philippines. So again, people don't even look at this from a global impact, right? We're always a little bit too focused on America, what's happening. In the Philippines, they are having huge issues because I'm told that they have 1 doctor per 33,000 people. Again, we're gonna give you all this information, hopefully linked down and below. And we did also find out that a Seattle doctor who complained about the lack of PPE was fired by the hospital. And I think that was one of the areas we wanted to go to right now, is not only is a healthcare worker essential, my work, I do security, is an essential worker, but other people are out there who are not unionized. And this really is a time to be pushing for that, right? So we want to unionize because we're an essential worker, we deserve hazard pay, and now all of a sudden we've become very, very important workers. Our work is completely different because I have to go to work. So whatever the tone is out in New York City, if it's going to turn bad with the quarantine, I'm going to have to deal with maybe the military or the law or a rising crime just to get to my job. And then if somebody is sick at my job, putting myself at risk to pick up the virus. So right now is a really important time to think about the impact of unions. This guy, this poor doctor, just lost his job because he spoke out and told the truth, but he has no protection. I would think there would be a lawsuit brewing there. I don't think you can just get fired for doing that. He also could become a spokesperson for the tone deafness of the establishment. This guy is pleading for his life. I need this PPE, I need this, I'm a doctor here. I've heard they have better equipment in the Philippines. Again, that was part of the report, that they have better, you'll look at memes, and again, it's hard to judge, but it seems like other countries like Japan and South Korea and so forth have better protection equipment than we do. That's what it seems. Again, this is gonna all come out in the laundry, right? After this is over, we're gonna find out how this all really went down. And I think we talked before, it would be great to hear from more healthcare workers on the front line how desperate they are. You know, you hear a lot of talking heads, a lot of pundits. No, we really need to get on the ground and understand the risk that's being taken and the lack of equipment. Now, Trump just used the Defense Production Act. He's going to put into play and make he forced GM to build 100,000 ventilators. And I like that he spoke. I know people don't like Trump, but he was talking about, you know, giving these ventilators to the world. If we have extra ones, if we can get, you know, this going, we can give these ventilators to whoever needs it, because the need is global. The impact that this pandemic, obviously the word pandemic, it's global. So everybody's being affected in different ways. So you would hope, again, that this would shine a light globally, that everybody needs a union, everybody needs protection. And it's crazy that me and you are both essential workers, and that I'll be leaving here to go into New York City within, you know, 10, 20 minutes. And I have no idea what I'm going to run into, you know, so.
Oh man. Yeah, I can't even imagine, especially knowing that it's literally the epicenter of the world for COVID right now. That's got to be nuts. But going back to, like you said, union protections. I used to work at a local hospital in my area, here in my area too, and I am so glad that I'm not working there, because I can just imagine, you know, you walking around, you know, everybody's on droplet precautions, airborne precautions, and you don't have your proper equipment, and you worry every day that you're going to be the next one to come down with it. And really, at this point with this disease, you don't know if you're the unlucky one that maybe just have a slight change in your immune system and you get deathly sick or even die. So that is just so crazy that, you know, we don't have the union protections that we used to have, because we let too many neoliberals, both Republican and Democrats, take away our rights. And I'm pretty sure if FDR was around, he would say, what is going on? All the things that I put in place during the World War II and the Great Depression, they're all gone. It's ridiculous. Why are we moving backwards instead of forwards?
Right, and so the pandemic is shining a light on this. And again, when we talk about essential workers, everybody is scared across the board, right? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to get COVID? Am I going to be able to pay my rent? You know, people who are nervous, they don't have health insurance. 30 million people in this country don't have health insurance. Think of the stress there. I'm just an essential worker. I do security. Maybe I'm taking in way too much information, but this is by far the most hungover I've felt, the most sick. So I can't imagine the stress of being a frontline provider. And again, with the lack of Medicare for all, and I'm sure everybody, so the big argument to Medicare for all is, well, the system is going to be overloaded. And I would say to them, probably right now, if we had all Medicare for all, there would be a lot of telecalls to psychiatrists and psychologists, because people are struggling to deal with this. But imagine if everybody had Medicare for all, and there would be an incredible network being set up right now, right, for telecall, for telepsychology, which the homeless are going to need, and essential workers are going to need, and single mothers are going to, I mean, this is really, again, a pandemic that shines the need for Medicare for all, not just here in America, but around the world, right? So no country in the world should not be giving health insurance as a human right. So again, they look at us for leadership, to be the country that says, hey, that's a good idea, and we don't have it. So again, if we want to slide over to MMT, we know that Medicare for all is a doable, it's doable because it's being done in many different countries, right? So we've heard that from Bernie many times. Every other, Canada right below us, I would love for Mexico to do it. That would really help us if we had Mexico do it. But I'm saying the Scandinavian, all across the world, there is Medicare for all, or universal health care, or whatever you want to call it. And it's needed right now. So again, this shines a bright light on, I don't want to hear about the ACA, I don't want to hear about Obamacare, I want to hear about Medicare for all right now. And you know, we have states that didn't expand the Medicaid package, right? So we have states that are literally killing people on a decision not to expand on that program. And literally, again, people are walking around with blood on their hands. We have many senators and congressmen walking around with blood on their hands.
And you're dead right. If we had Medicare for all right now, we would already have a more streamlined system in order to get the things that are needed to the places that we need it. And we've seen in countries that have better systems, they're able to take care of these things a lot faster. Like, I know a lot of people say, well, doesn't Italy have healthcare for all, and look at how bad they are? Well, they overlook one simple fact, that Italy is part of the EU, and it's one of the smaller countries in the EU that had to import a lot of things. So the EU actually made it so it's harder for them to mobilize their resources. So this is why they're in the situation they're in. So in a situation like this here, right now, everything should stop. All our fabric factories be open, making gowns, making masks. Like I say, Trump shouldn't even have to say we need to make, or GM make ventilators. Every company that possibly can make a ventilator should be making ventilators, getting these people, making sure they are safe, and getting them back to health as quick as possible. And just no excuse. We just need to mobilize the resources now. And once you understand that MMT means that when you're dealing with MMT, that you know that money is not the object; it's only mobilizing the resources is the object. So let's forget about price tags and everything, because there's no price tag on a human life. I'm sorry.
And when you talk about Italy, there's other factors involved. Again, I know that people out there are going to push back and say Italy has single payer and they have the issue. It wasn't that. Italy has the second. Their population is the second oldest in the world. So Japan is first, and then Italy has the second oldest population, so they're more at risk. They're more familial, so that means that the families get together, grandparents and moms and kids always are getting together. And also, it's the hub now of, it's one of the newer hubs for travel from China.
With Italy especially, they are a currency user at this point, because they gave up the lira to join the euro, and now they don't have any kind of flexibility with their economy. So when it came time to mobilize resources for healthcare, they had to sit and beg the European Union to release funds to them in order to mobilize resources. And because it's not done in a timely manner enough, people have to die. And that is so sad.
And again, the economics of that is very hard for people to understand, right? So now you're asking them to understand difficult concepts of MMT and currency. So there's a lot of people who are like, my gosh, well, I don't know what these guys are talking about right now. So I don't know, can you break it down?
All right, so basically with Italy, once they decide to join the European Union, financially, they no longer had control of their currency. So they basically went from being like the United States, who has 1% control of the dollar, to being like Florida, New York, California, Texas. There are states that have to tax in order to get their money. And because they're already under austerity imposed by the EU, which means that they're not getting the amount of funds that they need to mobilize their economy properly, that means that they couldn't move things in a quick enough manner. And like I said before, people are dying because of that.
So they actually have to go through a process where they're asking the EU to release more funds.
Yep, the European Central Bank, yes, they have to ask them, yes.
And it's their decision. And again, that's a whole other world, right? So now we're talking about Italy and the euro and how do they get there to release their funds. It's very difficult for people to understand. But again, it's based in MMT, and it's based on being able to control your own currency is what you're trying to say.
Exactly.
And again, these are difficult issues, and the pandemic is shining a light on all these different issues. There's so many different issues that we're going to see unfold as this continues. So there's many things we could be doing during a lockdown, correct, Jabari?
Since everybody has extra time, let's educate ourselves. Here at Real Progressive, Real Progress in Action, we believe very much in each one, teach one. So if you can get a chance, you can look up our podcast, Macro and Cheese. We've had like, I think it's what, 53, 54 episodes.
So again, we've asked you before, the time is definitely to pick up the phone and call your congressman, call your senator. You're also, I would employ you from this side that you should make phone calls for this guy. You should get on and do phone banking if you're on lockdown right now. You know, remember those phone calls, you could also reach out and see how people are doing. Because some people aren't getting phone calls. Some people are locked down by themselves alone in their house. They would love to hear from you just to check in. So if you're like, oh, I don't like to make that makes me feel, that makes me feel nervous to make phone calls. Well, we really need you to make phone calls right now.